Hey everybody, how you guys doing today? Just cleaning up the saw shop. I got a roaring fire going. It's a good day to be in the shop. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Hope your weather's been better than ours. It's been cold, friends. 3 weeks. I know I talk about the weather, but it's been bad. A lot of breakdowns, a lot of issues, icy roads, zero visibility. Just been hanging out in the saw shop. Haven't been doing much cutting. But sooner than later, I'll be able to get out and put some saws in the wood because I think most of us that are here, that's what we like doing. What I'm up to today, I was actually going through some odds and ends, cleaning some stuff up, bagging parts, going over a couple of saws that have kind of been off to the side. Some of the saws are saws that have been on the channel, some have not. And then I decided, friends, it's time to get back into the Cs590 Echo. I made the last video I did on this, I kind of explained to you guys what I was thinking, okay? And it was a hypothesis then. And I said I wouldn't dig back into this saw till I had a good plan. When you're porting power saws, you want to have a plan of what you're doing, okay? Do you want more torque? Are you building a bottom to mid-range saw? Are you building a mid-range to high RPM saw? Are you going to do machine work, etc., etc.? What length of bar do you want this saw to pull? It's all relative, friends. For me, typically, I want to increase the cut speed by a couple thousand RPM. I want to move my torque curve up, and I don't want crazy high compression. That's not typically the kind of saw that I build. You guys have seen why. Half the year here, you can't start super high compression saws. And or you wreck recoils and stuff like that. So this saw, this is my buddy Caleb's saw. He asked if I could port it, and I thought, yeah, why not? Now, friends, I went into this build completely blind. I really didn't look up much into it. I knew it was a 60cc saw and it was a newer saw. That's all I know. I talked to a couple buddies and they said to upgrade the carburetor, and that's about it. Carburetor and ignition. So we went there. Friends, typically when I'm porting a saw, I just jump into it. The whole idea for me is, does my system that a lot of you guys come here to learn, does my system work on any saw? Well, it has worked on every saw that I've done it to, except for this one. This is the first time I've ported a saw that didn't run better after. Now, stock, I wouldn't consider this to be a super clean running saw. They're kind of raspy and rich and snarly. They don't pull a lot of RPM. They are super torquey. In the cut, buried, this thing just pulls. But it's not a very fast saw. Caleb runs a tree service. He likes a fast saw that pulls a long bar. So I figured I would do my typical work to this. Let's get back in to refresh. And newcomers, welcome. We were working on this saw months ago, put it back together, and this saw would not clean up in the cut, meaning it was too rich. Looking at the timing numbers stock, I wasn't super happy with what I was starting with, but I thought I can make this thing run. So what did I end up doing to the saw, friends? I got my handy dandy notebook back out. Stock numbers with this saw. With no base gasket, it had 17.5 thousandths of squish. I put a base gasket delete and ran it like that. So it's about 19.5, 20 thousandths right now. Perfect for a work saw. Exhaust was 114. Transfers open at 129. So this saw out of the box had 15 degrees of blowdown. So right there, this is a short blowdown saw. Intake opens at 79. It closes at 79 or 80. Intakes often will open and close at a slightly different timing number. So my intake duration is about 159 on this saw. Friends, that is heavy on the intake duration for a saw this size. Bigger power saws will run at 160, 162. As you get smaller, you can't add as much intake because the bottom end physically just can't handle it. So right there, I knew I may have potential for too much crankcase pressure. Okay. I did not change the intake timing of this saw. All I did with this saw is reshape and raise the exhaust roof, hog out the lower transfers to give more case capacity. That should give this thing more power on the top. The reason why I build saws to make power on the top, friends, is if you run a sharp chain and you let the saw cut, which is the type of cutting I do, I don't lean on saws. I find that's hard on them. It makes them run hot, can score them, etc. I like a sharp chain and a high-speed saw and just let the saw cut. So I tend to focus on the upper end of the RPM where most saws are going to live. Okay, so what I did to this saw, I put a higher RPM ignition on it because I knew it would probably bounce off the rev limiter in the cut. And so where we're at with this is this saw runs horribly. I was kind of shocked when I first fired it up. It's farting and snarling. It's spitting back through the carb, which I noticed stock. It was kind of doing that. These things run really rich out of the box. So what happened is by raising the exhaust roof, and we ended up with a situation where more fuel and air is getting into the combustion chamber because the exhaust is bleeding the gases off after combustion. It's bleeding the combustion off, and then it's allowing the transfers to fill the combustion chamber more. I always talk about blowdown. To me, and I guess most modern two-strokes friends have long blowdown. Why? Because you get more fuel and air into the combustion chamber with a longer blowdown. Because the exhaust, if the exhaust opens here and the transfers start filling here, your combustion chamber can have more pressure than your transfer charge coming in. So I was happy to get 25 degrees of blowdown out of this, okay? So I raised the exhaust 10 degrees on this saw, friends. That's a lot, but I thought most modern two-strokes that are 60cc are going to time somewhere around 102 stock. So I thought to myself, if I can open up the muffler, put a bigger carb on this, I could get this thing rocking and rolling with a modern 60cc saw. This is a long stroke, small bore saw, so it should be torquey even with a higher exhaust roof. Now, what am I planning to do to this, friends? Well, I'm going to take the top end off. Let's look at an Echo. Let's compare an Echo to a 372 top end. Let's compare the transfer shapes and what Echo did and why I think why I think this cylinder is acting the way it is. And then I'm going to tell you guys what I'm planning to do, okay? And then the next video, I think we're going to start grinding on this again. I had to do some searching. I talked to a couple of guys that have ported these. Nobody's used the numbers that I use. My numbers are way out in left field, friends. I think these are going to be happier as a short blowdown saw, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to raise the upper transfers, reshape them, and try and give this thing less blowdown. And what that should do, when the transfers open, it'll start bleeding that bottom end pressure off sooner, okay? Because what's happening right now, friends, the intake is open for so long, it's getting too much fuel and air into the bottom end, and it's starting to spit back before the intake port closes, okay? So I think because I did so much lower transfer work to this thing, we're creating more of a problem because there's a larger volume in there and it's actually pushing back with a greater force, right? Like a bigger tire at 30 PSI will hold more weight than a smaller tire at 30 PSI. If you guys know what I'm saying, it actually pushes back with a greater force. So without further ado, I'm going to take this top end off, friends. Let's have a look at Echo at a Cs590 and let's discuss what we can do, because you guys are here with me. What can we do to fix this? I don't know if this is going to work, friends. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to order another top end and I will port it in a completely different fashion. Give me a few minutes here. I'm going to pull the top end off and let's have a look-see. Okay, here's our cylinder. I just ripped it off. You guys can see it's starting to break in again, getting shiny. Okay, so not a lot of time on this cylinder. You guys can see it's starting to break in again. No worse for wear. I see nothing that concerns me. You can see it's been running very inefficiently. You can see the carbon's starting to cake on the top there. Let's see if we can get you guys. There you guys go. Okay. So, I see nothing. Okay, everything's good. Now, I want you guys to have a look here. You see the transfer designs of Echo does this sometimes, I've noticed. Let's compare this to a 372. This is more advanced stuff, but I feel like a lot of you guys have been here for a long time. Okay. Here, let's look. Okay, intake. Let's look at the design. Okay, now I didn't open these up a ton, just a little bit. Okay. Now, what do you guys notice? Primary, secondary. Okay. Primary, secondary. The primary is smaller than the secondary on an Echo. Now look at the top, friends. See that? Look at how small the primary is compared to the secondary, the uppers, okay? Now, I like the shape of the secondary. It's got a nice curve up, okay? Now, look at a 372. Okay, the primary is bigger. Primary is bigger than the secondary, and it is bigger on both upper and lower. Okay, guys, so when I saw this, I thought to myself, well, if that's how Echo does it, I'm not going to fight them. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you get a design. McCulloughs are a little strange how they do things. Sometimes you get a design, Home Light's the same, that is a little different. Now, you can try to imply your will on it, but often if you work with the design, you get a really good running saw, and then you learn, right? So my idea, friends, is, and I don't know if this is even going to work, my idea, and I think I'm going to grab the handy dandy notebook. Okay. Here we are. Okay. So we have our primary and our secondary, right? These are the upper transfers. Okay. What I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to try and widen the primary. Okay. Widen this one right here. I think there's enough space that I can do it. Now, this is going to be major surgery. That primary is very small. Okay. But what I'm going to attempt to do here, friends, is I'm going to widen it, and I'm going to try and raise the primary 3 or 4 degrees. Now, I don't want to grind too high because I might actually end up grinding through here. So if you're really raising uppers, take some measurements and kind of figure out, right? Because look, okay, it's going to be close, friends. So, and then your secondary, I'd like to raise one first, and I'm probably going to raise that one, okay, the primary. Primaries typically should open before a secondary, but again, I don't know why Echo did what they did. There's a lot of guys smarter than me out there. If you know why Echo does it the way they're doing it, please comment. Okay, so I didn't touch these, friends. I wanted to see if this thing would run with 25, 26 degrees of blowdown. It will not. How do I know that? Well, 2 different ignitions and 3 carburetors tell me I am overpressurizing my bottom end, okay? Now, why? I did not change the intake timing. All I did was scuff it up a little bit, okay? And I left it. Now, so what's going on here, friends? If this is your intake port right here, okay? Here's your bottom end, okay? As RPM increases, airflow increases, right? You're literally drawing more air into the bottom end. Does that make sense? Okay. This thing is wanting to pull a much higher RPM in the cut, but the problem is I am now over pressurizing. If your transfers are here, okay, If your transfers are here and your exhaust is here, right? What I attempted to do is give the exhaust more time to exit before the transfers open to allow more air and fuel into the combustion chamber. Okay? Now, by raising these up, I am bleeding off the pressure in the bottom end sooner. And what should happen, and I don't know if it's going to, is I will alleviate it spitting back through the carburetor. That's what it's doing right now. Now, the more it spits back through the carburetor, the wetter and wetter the air filter and air box gets, okay? And as you run the saw, it will literally get richer and richer and richer and richer until you just can't, you can't do anything with it, friends. You can't lean it out, okay? Now, we still may need to build a custom carburetor for this saw. I put this carb on, okay? This is a Walboro HDA off of an 80cc Echo. Okay, and I rigged it up on there. It kind of fits, but not really. That's a good carburetor. That is an unlimited carb, run what you brung. It wouldn't run any different with that carb. So, okay, friends. So, as RPM increases and case capacity increases, I did widen these just a little bit. We created a bigger volume in the bottom end. Okay, as RPM increases, you get more fuel and air going into the bottom end. Your upper transfers, okay, your upper transfers control how long the bottom end is under pressure. If you open them sooner, your bottom end pressurizes for less time. If you open them later, your bottom end pressurizes for longer. So basically, long blowdown equals less duration on your intake, okay? If the longer your intake's open, the longer you're feeding your bottom end. If you have short blowdown, in my experience, it will tolerate more intake timing. The byproduct is it spits back through the carburetor, and or you'll have a lazy saw. It won't rev fast. When you guys see a lot of us builders and we have a saw that you pull the trigger and it just lights up, that is proof that the intake timing a guy picked is just right on. You know what I mean? In conjunction with the transfer timing, the ignition that's on the saw. Okay, short blowdown typically equals longer duration. Okay? This is the style that I typically use. A lot of other guys use this, and you guys know me, I do not argue porting technique or theory. To each their own. This is the type of saw I like. I like long blowdown because in the cut, in my experience, a longer blowdown saw with enough compression, okay, will cut really fast. So, once again, to reiterate, I'm going to raise the upper transfers, one and or both. I would like to widen this if I can and raise this, and then I'll slap the saw back together and we can see if it runs. If I still have a problem, I will then go and maybe move this one up a couple degrees. I'd like to lift this to like 20 degrees. Okay, so I will raise these as high as it will allow me, okay? You guys can see this saw is not running very clean right now, okay? I did polish that exhaust, and you guys know the deal. The camera picks up everything. Okay, and there's an example of a Tin Man style exhaust. I like a heavy D shape. Heavy D shape, I typically don't widen them much, or if at all. Why? I like to support my pistons a long time, and I like my rings to last as long as possible. This shape really is gentle on rings. Okay, I build work saws. So the idea of a work saw is enough power and plus longevity. If a guy's making money with a saw, typically they like them to last for year after year. It's been my experience. Okay, friends, so I'm just going to back you guys out. That's the plan. Raise the upper transfers to bleed off intake pressure sooner. And or if that doesn't work, friends, we can also go in here with JB Weld and JB Weld. Notice I did not even attempt to lower the intake timing. Okay. I did not want to lower that. I stayed away from it. Now, friends, another thing that we can do to this saw, another way, is I can slow down the intake velocity. I could actually widen this intake more. And that will slow down the intake charge and I will lose velocity. I don't typically want to do that, but in this case, that might be something to think about. I don't know if that's a silly idea, just thinking out loud, but if you lower your intake velocity, you can actually fill the bottom end less. Okay, friends, I hope this video was of help to some of you. A lot of you guys have been emailing me asking, when am I getting back into this? Well, friends, I had to have a good game plan. Now, this is my good buddy saw, and he said whenever it's done, it's done. But I had to have a good game plan because I've never experienced this before. Now, once again, I think this is 100% a blowdown issue. Typically, long blowdown, the saws rip. But in this case, we have a very shallow and very tight case in the saw. And we have super, super long intake timing. I noticed that's an Echo thing. I'm not sure why Echo does what they do, but they do things a little different. That's what guys that like Echoes like them. Well, they are definitely a different saw. And I try on this channel, friends, we've been doing this how many years now? I try to take saws on or try to work on saws, a lot of them, saws that I've never worked on, because I feel like if I'm learning in real time, you guys will get a better video and better content out of it. Not every saw you port is going to work out. Sometimes they blow up. Anybody that builds saws knows. Sometimes you're going to pop a saw by, you didn't even see it coming. Sometimes you're going to pop a saw because you push the limits. And once in a while, you're going to get a saw that runs horribly. And this is that saw for me, friends. And I like to be open and honest. I don't hide anything on this channel. You guys remember years ago, I popped that home light. I made a video on it right then and there because it was like, this happens. Okay, friends. I think that's a long enough video for today. So again, remember that case capacity can be modified, not just by grinding in the cases and making it bigger or JB welding and making it smaller. You can actually modify case pressure with your intake timing, but also with your transfer timing. If a saw's a little bit too rich, think about it. If you raise the transfers higher, you're pressurizing the bottom end on the downstroke for less time. And that is one way to lower case pressure and sometimes alleviate the carb spitting back. Okay, friends, thanks for hanging out. As always, thanks for being here. I so enjoy having you guys hang out in my shop. Thanks for all the thumbs up. If you like what we're doing, I have never said this before, friends. Please subscribe if you enjoy the content. YouTubers are supposed to say that. I still don't. I'm not good at the YouTube-y part of this, friends. I just like sharing saw work and builds and my life and what I'm doing with you guys. Anyhow, friends, keep your fingers crossed, because when I grind this, we're going to find out if that's the deal. I will say, I think that's going to fix this. I've talked to a few guys. Most guys that I've talked to that have ported these have done extensive transfer work. So this could be an important saw for me, friends, because I learned something. A lot of saws I do, I go bing, bang, boom, and slap it together, and the saw runs really good. It's every once in a while you get one like this, and sometimes it's not the most enjoyable experience, but at the end of it, friends, you learn something. And I always want to keep learning. If I stop learning at this, I will get bored, and I guarantee that. So anyhow, friends, thanks for watching. Take her easy. Later.